America is watching. The Islamic Republic of Iran launched ballistic missiles at United States forces in Jordan, and the United States military answered back hard. Massive waves of strikes, the president on Fox News saying things that even made the anchors blink. And I will quote him directly, folks. We're going to beat the... Well, I can't say it on the air, but you heard it. You know what he said. And frankly, I appreciated the candor. This is not a simulation. This is not a drill. American jets and bombers, American firepower, American resolve, pointed directly at the regime that has been poking and prodding and funding terror and chanting death to America since 1979. And for the first time in a very long time, the answer came back. You picked the wrong day. And meanwhile, back in Washington, there is a man who cannot answer a single question, not one, without taking the Fifth Amendment. Over 100 times. 100 times he hid behind the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. A man who shut down the country. A man whose face is in the Smithsonian. A man the taxpayers paid, handsomely, to tell them to stay home and be afraid. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the tiny tyrant, back in the hot seat and choosing silence over answers. Two stories today, my friends. One is about what happens when America decides it's done being pushed around. The other is about what happens when a powerful bureaucrat runs out of road. Rick LeBow. This is Rush Hour, and we are just getting started. Let's start with Iran, because nothing on today's docket matters more than this. The United States of America launched what commanders are calling a heavy wave of strikes against the Islamic Republic of Iran. This after Iran had the sheer audacity, the absolute gall, to fire ballistic missiles at American forces stationed in Jordan. Let me say that again slowly for those of you who have been told this is a complicated situation with nuance on both sides. Iran shot ballistic missiles at American troops. That's not a gray area, folks. That is an act of war. Full stop. And the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, got on Fox News, and he did not speak in careful, measured diplospeak. He did not convene a working group. He did not issue a statement expressing grave concern. He said, and I'm cleaning this up for broadcast purposes, we're going to beat the living daylights out of them. That's the family version. And then they did. Now, I've been watching American foreign policy for a long, long time. I watched 8 years of Barry Obama, who apparently believed that if you were extremely polite to Iran and gave them about $150 billion, their own money, yes, I know, but let's not kid ourselves about how that worked, that they would warm up to us, like leaving cookies out for a feral dog that has bitten you 11 times. Maybe this time he'll be friendly. The Iranians have been our enemy since 1979. Not sometimes, not under certain administrations. Since 1979, they took American hostages for 444 days. They funded Hezbollah. They funded the militias blowing up Americans in Iraq. They tried to assassinate a sitting Saudi ambassador on American soil. They've been behind enough violence and bloodshed to fill a library. And somewhere in the Obama wing of that library, there's probably a chapter on how talking to them more nicely would have fixed everything. Well, this administration is operating on a different theory. The theory is, you shoot at our guys, we shoot back, and we shoot back harder. This is not complicated. This is not a new doctrine. This is what every serious nation on earth has always understood, and what Washington forgot for about 20 years. Now let me address the people in the press, our dear friends in the drive-by media, who are already hand-wringing about escalation. I saw some of it this morning. Could this lead to a wider conflict? Is Trump escalating tensions? What does this mean for the region? You know what I love about this? They ask these questions as if the escalation didn't start on the other end. Iran launched ballistic missiles at American servicemen in Jordan. That's what they call the opening act. The escalation train left the station when the Ayatollah's boys fired up their ballistic missiles and pointed them at people wearing the American flag on their shoulder. I don't recall any of those same anchors asking, is Iran escalating tensions when the missiles were in the air? Funny how it only becomes an escalation concern when America responds. Here's my extended thought on this, and I want you to stay with me because it matters. For years, decades, we've operated under this peculiar unwritten rule in the Middle East where Iran could do basically anything, fund anybody, blow up anybody, threaten anybody, fire at anybody, and the American response was roughly equivalent to a strongly worded letter from the Assistant Deputy Undersecretary of something or other. The Iranians learned from this. They ran the experiment. They fired at Saudi oil facilities in 2019 and nothing happened to them. They funded the militias that killed hundreds of Americans in Iraq, and it cost them nothing. They kept their nuclear program rolling, kept enriching uranium, kept sponsoring terror from Beirut to Yemen, and the international community kept negotiating, kept offering, kept hoping. You know what the Iranians learned from all of that? They learned that the cost of being evil was zero. And when evil is free, you get more of it. That's not a complex geopolitical insight. That's just supply and demand. What Trump did last night, if reports are accurate, and they appear to be, is change the price. The price of shooting at Americans just went up considerably, and there are reports this could be the first of a 2-week campaign to finish off Iran's ballistic missile arsenal entirely. Now that would be something. Not just a retaliatory strike, but a systematic dismantling of the infrastructure of Iranian aggression. The Democrats are going to say this is reckless. They're going to say Trump is starting a war. And I will simply point out that the war was started by the people who fired the missiles, not the people who fired back. The Iranians don't actually want a full-scale confrontation with the United States military. They've never wanted that. Everything they do is calculated to stay just below that threshold. What Trump is doing is moving the threshold, making it clear that any aggression against American forces will bring a response they will remember. And you know what? Xi Jinping is watching this very carefully. Kim Jong-un is watching. Every thug with a grudge against America and a weapons program is doing the math today, and the math is different than it was a week ago. I keep coming back to this. The people who will criticize this loudest are the same people who thought the Iran nuclear deal was a masterpiece of diplomacy. The deal where we basically paid Iran to promise to slow down the nuclear program they kept running anyway, and they were proud of that. They accepted awards for that. Well, I've got a different theory of diplomacy, folks. It rhymes with peace through strength. Maybe you've heard of it. Now, Rand Paul voted against the strikes, and Rand Paul will make his constitutional argument about congressional authorization, and that is a legitimate argument in the abstract. I have a lot of respect for Rand Paul. But I will note that when a ballistic missile is in the air heading toward your troops, the time for scheduling a Senate Authorization Committee hearing is perhaps already past. Bottom line, folks, America struck back hard. The Iranians now know that the era of free aggression is over. And whatever happens next, it will happen with the Iranian regime knowing that the sleeping giant has woken up, and he is not in the mood. Don't doubt me. All right, folks, we have got stories to get through here, and I am fired up today, so let's move quickly. First up, Anthony Fauci, the tiny tyrant, America's doctor of destruction, The man whose signed baseball cap is proudly displayed at the Smithsonian Institution, right between some genuine American heroes and, apparently, Dr. Fauci's ego. This man sat before the Senate Homeland Security Committee, chaired by Rand Paul, and invoked the Fifth Amendment over 100 times. 100 times. You know, most people take the Fifth when they have something to hide. When you take it 116 times, which, yes, I counted, you don't have one thing to hide, you have a whole warehouse of things to hide. Now, Rand Paul says Congress will vote to hold Fauci in contempt, and good. That is exactly right. Meanwhile, Josh Hawley, and God bless him, Josh Hawley is a fighting conservative, is introducing a bill to close the loopholes that allowed Fauci to rake in over $1 million in cash prizes from organizations his own NIH staff helped solicit. While he was supposed to be running the nation's pandemic response, while millions of Americans were losing their businesses and their jobs, and their kids were sitting home watching school on a laptop because St. Fauci said so, but he got his awards. He got his $1 million. He got his baseball cap in the Smithsonian. I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh. This is serious. This is about a federal employee who became a celebrity, who used that celebrity to enrich himself, and who now won't answer for any of it under oath. And the Smithsonian, a taxpayer-funded museum, has this man's memorabilia on heroic display, his placard, his signed cap, like he's Babe Ruth. And by the way, speaking of the Smithsonian, the secretary of that institution, a fellow by the name of Lonnie Bunch, made over $4.4 million between 2020 and 2024 at a taxpayer-funded museum, while pushing DEI must be at the center of everything they do. $4.4 million for running a free museum. Folks, I've heard of golden parachutes. This guy's got a golden exhibit hall. Trump, to his credit, says he was never a fan of Fauci. I inherited Fauci, is what he said, and he watched the whole hearing. Good, watch it. Watch what it looks like when a powerful bureaucrat runs out of room, hides behind the Fifth, and the whole country finally starts asking the questions that should have been asked 4 years ago. Senator Paul is going to push the contempt vote. Good, do it. America deserves answers from the man who told them they couldn't go to church, but could go to a riot, who told them masks don't work, and then told them masks are essential, and then told them they need 2 masks. This man owes the country an explanation, and instead he's sitting there going, Fifth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, 116 times. My friends, if I'd have pulled the Fifth 116 times before a Senate committee, you'd never have heard the end of it. The drive-by media would have parked a satellite truck outside my house. But Fauci? Well, he's a hero, you see. He's a brave and noble public servant. His baseball cap is in a museum. Don't question him. That's misinformation. Moving on, and this one I just enjoy too much to skip. Democrat James Tallarico, running for Senate in Texas, put out a campaign ad where he's behind the wheel of a Dodge Ram 1500, presenting himself as your regular, hard-working, real Texan. Calloused hands, working class, salt of the earth, the whole production. And then somebody went and checked the plates on that truck. Enterprise rental lot. It was a rental. He rented the truck for the commercial, put on his plaid shirt, got behind the wheel of a Dodge Ram from an Enterprise rent-a-car, and said, I'm a real Texan. He rented the Texas identity. He literally budgeted for authenticity. This is what the Democrats do, folks. They have absolutely no connection to the people they claim to represent. So they manufacture the connection, they costume up, they rent a Ram 1500, and they say, I feel your pain. Meanwhile, they've probably never been further from Austin than the airport terminal. Bless his heart. That is one of the greatest stories in the history of American political advertising. The rented Texan. You cannot make this stuff up. I have more fun doing this job than a human being should be allowed to have. And then finally, quickly, Michigan. There's a Senate primary coming up, and on the Democrat side, there is a socialist, Abdul El-Sayed, a protege of Bernie Sanders, running against a more conventional Democrat, Representative Haley Stevens. And separately, Republican Mike Rogers holds a double-digit lead over El-Sayed and is tied with Stevens. Now, here's what's interesting about this. My friends, the Washington Examiner has a piece about how this Detroit primary race is a barometer. Will black voters in Michigan go for the socialist surge taking over the Democrat Party? And I find this fascinating because the Democrat Party at this point is being pulled in about 17 directions at once. You've got the socialists, you've got the old school machine Democrats, you've got the squad wing, and the poor moderates are just standing in the middle of the tornado trying to remember which way is up. John Fetterman, remember him, the hoodie senator from Pennsylvania, looks increasingly like a man who wandered into the wrong party and can't find the exit. He's catching heat from Democrats. Schumer's begging him to stay. The Republicans are saying, "Come on over, John, the water's fine." I don't know what Fetterman does. But the fact that the question is even being asked tells you everything about where the Democrat Party is right now. They have been taken over by the radical left, and the sensible Democrats, all 7 of them, are looking around going, "What happened to this place?" What happened, my friends, is what always happens when you don't confront something directly. You let the radicals run, you let them primary good people, you let them take over your institutions, and eventually you look up and the party of Harry Truman is running a socialist who wants government grocery stores in New York City and calling it progress. And then they wonder why voters in Michigan and Pennsylvania keep walking away. My friends, here's what I want to leave you with today, and I want you to chew on this in your car or at your desk or wherever you're listening to Rush Hour. 2 things happened today that the drive-by media is going to frame in very particular ways. The strikes on Iran will be called reckless, scary, a provocation, and they will find 17 experts to tell you we should have tried diplomacy again. For the 43rd time. And the Fauci hearing, where a man who ran the country's pandemic response took the fifth over 100 times, will get buried on page 14, if it gets covered at all. Because if you are a person of common sense, and I believe my audience overwhelmingly is, you look at what happened today and you see something that hasn't happened in a while. You see an America that shoots back. You see an America where the powerful bureaucrats are finally being asked to answer questions in front of cameras and under oath. And you see a Democrat Party so lost in its own ideological fever dream that they're running a guy in a rented truck and calling him a Texan. America is not finished, folks. Not by a long shot. The country has good bones, the people have good sense, and every now and then, the right people get into the right positions, and you get a day where the bullies get hit back, and the frauds get exposed, and the renters of trucks get found out. It's a good day to be a patriot. I'm Rick LeBow. This has been Rush Hour. Same time tomorrow if they let us back on.